Hi everyone, I'm Emma, and you're on the Stories by Emma channel. Let's dive into some amazing stories. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. The Broken Path. Ethan Parker walked down the narrow streets of Brooklyn, his hands buried deep in his pockets, his mind racing with thoughts. He had recently lost his job at a tech startup, and his financial situation was deteriorating fast. Rent was overdue and bills were piling up. But what hurt the most was the silence from his best friend Jonah, who had disappeared from his life without explanation. The apartment Ethan shared with his girlfriend, Ava, had turned into a quiet battlefield. These days they barely spoke, both lost in their own struggles. Ethan missed the times when they laughed over cheap takeout, dreaming about their future. Now every conversation felt heavy, weighed down by unspoken fears and frustrations. One evening, Ethan decided to track Jonah down. He found him at a bar in Manhattan, a spot they used to visit often. As he entered, he saw Jonah sitting at a corner table, deep in conversation with people Ethan didn't recognize. Something about Jonah seemed different. His carefree spirit had been replaced by a tense, nervous energy. Jonah looked up and froze when he saw Ethan. There was an awkward pause as their eyes locked. Ethan approached, his heart pounding in his chest. "Why did you disappear?" Ethan asked, his voice barely audible over the noise of the bar. Jonah hesitated, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. "I'm sorry, man," Jonah finally said, running his hand through his hair. "I got mixed up in some bad stuff. I didn't want to drag you into it." Ethan felt a wave of anger and relief. He wasn't sure if he should be mad at Jonah for leaving or grateful for trying to protect him. But before he could respond, Jonah's phone buzzed, and his expression shifted instantly. "I gotta go," Jonah muttered, standing up abruptly. Ethan grabbed his arm, his grip firm but gentle. "No, you don't. Not this time." The tension between them was thick. Jonah sighed and sat back down, guilt written all over his face. "I owe some dangerous people money, Ethan. I've been avoiding you because I didn't want you to get involved." Back at the apartment, Ethan paced the floor, thinking about Jonah's words. Jonah had always been reckless, but this was different. Sensing his unease, Ava asked what was going on. Ethan hesitated, but eventually told her everything. "Jonah's in trouble, Ava." "I don't know what to do," he admitted, sinking onto the couch. Ava sat beside him, her hand resting on his. "Maybe he needs your help more than ever," she said softly. "But you have to be careful. This could get dangerous." Ethan nodded, appreciating her calm support. For the first time in weeks, they were having a real conversation, one that wasn't filled with tension or avoidance. The next day, Ethan met Jonah at a diner near the Brooklyn Bridge. Jonah looked exhausted, the light in his eyes almost completely gone. "I have a plan to get the money," Jonah said, his voice trembling. Ethan listened intently, trying to figure out how he could help. "But I need you, man," Jonah added, his eyes pleading. Ethan had always been the guy who fixed things, someone who couldn't stand to see his friends in pain. Against his better judgment, he agreed to help Jonah. They would work together to come up with the money and clear Jonah's debt. But Ethan made it clear, this would be the last time. In the following days, Ethan and Jonah worked non-stop. Ethan picked up extra freelance jobs, while Jonah did what he could to hustle the rest of the money. Slowly they made progress, though the tension hung heavy over them. Ava, initially skeptical, supported Ethan, encouraging him when things felt impossible. One night, after a particularly hard day, Jonah confessed something that shook Ethan to his core. "I've been gambling," Jonah admitted quietly. "That's how I got into this mess." Ethan felt a deep sense of disappointment but didn't say anything. He just nodded, trying to understand the pain that had driven Jonah to such desperate lengths. As the deadline for the debt approached, they were almost there. Jonah seemed more hopeful than he had been in weeks, but Ethan could still sense the fear gnawing at him. The weight of everything they'd been through pressed down on them both, reminding them how fragile life could be. On the final day, they met with Jonah's creditor in a small, dimly lit cafe. The man was intimidating, his cold eyes fixed on Jonah as he counted the cash. Ethan stood by, heart racing, praying that this would be enough. After what felt like an eternity, the man nodded. "We're done here," he said flatly before standing and walking out. As they left the cafe, Jonah turned to Ethan, tears welling in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Ethan nodded, feeling both relieved and drained. They had made it through the storm, and though their friendship had been tested, it survived. As they walked into the night, Ethan knew they were both stronger for having faced the darkness together.